Multiple studies have shown that reading and rereading notes remains the most popular study technique utilized by higher education students. And many of you will recognize the truth in this. Despite its popularity, scientific research consistently emphasizes the following point. Reading and rereading notes is classed as an ineffective, time-consuming study technique that does little to significantly improve memory retention. We all want to learn as efficiently as possible, but if rereading, highlighting, and summarizing isn't enough, then what should we be doing? I'll tell you exactly what. Active recall. Active recall is not recognition. When you recognize a piece of information, it feels like you know it, but you don't. At least not well enough to recall it from scratch and use it to answer, for example, an exam question. This is why multiple choice tests don't work well for studying. Students recognize the correct answer in a list of answers, and it lulls them into a false sense of knowing the information when all they're really doing is recognizing it. So what is active recall? Active recall is a study method that flips the original way of learning on its head. Traditionally, we learn by trying to put information into our brains. With active recall, you learn by retrieving information from your brain. Although this may sound strange, in practice, it's very straightforward. Active recall involves taking a topic you wish to learn, creating questions based on that topic, and then repeatedly testing yourself on those questions. By forcing your brain to retrieve the information, it ensures that you actively learn it instead of passively reading it. Not only are you significantly more likely to remember the information, active recall makes you acutely aware of topics that you do not understand and that requires additional attention. A study shows that testing yourself just once is more effective than rereading a chapter 4 times. I'm sure we've all used rereading at some point, but simply by testing yourself once, you could drastically improve the efficiency of your studies. This is such a simple technique, but has such substantial, obvious benefits that we would be foolish to not use it. The more we practice retrieving information from our memory, the better we get at it. In fact, it's the retrieval practice that actually helps us learn the information. As mentioned previously, active recall is widely regarded in the scientific literature as the study technique that improves exam performance the most. The very act of retrieving information and data from our brains not only strengthens our ability to retain information, but also improves connections in our brain between different concepts. Research from 2013, which analyzed hundreds of separate studies about effective revision techniques, concluded that testing or active recall is a technique that has high utility and can be implemented effectively with minimal training. So, how can you use active recall to learn quicker? Are there any more effective strategies? Well, first of all, almost anything we do that requires us to use cognitive effort and brain power to retrieve information is going to be helpful. I remember I started using this active recall unintentionally, just because I was too lazy to take out my notes. So I unconsciously use this method while trying to study in the street. A good strategy is closed book. If you can't quite break the habit of making notes, one strategy I found particularly helpful was making notes with your book closed. Instead of copying directly out of the book, try to learn a topic before writing out how you would explain the key points and key concepts in your own words, but with the book closed. Once you've written down as much as you can remember, open the book and add the parts you miss. Another good strategy is the Feynman technique. The best way to learn something is to teach it. You don't actually have to teach other people. All you have to do is explain your subject aloud from scratch to your cat, a potted plant, or an imaginary kid, as though the student you're explaining it to knows nothing about the topic. This forces you to explain it in simple terms, even if your subject is complex. So we've covered the pros of active recall. What are the downsides? I can sum up the cons in one sentence. Active recall is hard work. Continually testing yourself requires significant cognitive effort compared to studying by simply reading and highlighting your notes. It can be disheartening when you are struggling to answer questions on a difficult topic, and the temptation to simply read your notes instead can be very strong. But the key point is revision should be cognitively demanding. It's useful to think about this in terms of going to the gym. If you're lifting light weights, you're not going to make much progress. But if you're lifting weights that test your strength, you're more likely to develop muscle faster. It's the same with developing the muscle of your brain. The harder we have to work to retrieve information, the more effective our brains will become in storing and recalling that information in the future. Do your best to preserve and thank yourself later.